Welcome to Love Can Do It, where we showcase love and the people that promote it and live it. My guest tonight is Jen Duchene, and Jen specializes in teaching us how to speak up and how to have a voice. So here's Jen. Hi Jen, thank you so much for being here with us.
Hi Moriah, I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. So, what do you do? How do you teach people this?
Well, what I do is I teach women.
Women specifically?
Specifically,
okay.
How to ask for what they want.
Oh, okay.
In a way that doesn't hurt anyone else.
Uh-huh.
Because for most of my clients who are people pleasers, often people pleasers, so they have a difficulty expressing themselves without worrying about or feeling guilty about how someone else feels.
Yes.
You know, people
yes.
they care about.
And women particularly
yes,
like that.
Yes, particularly women. Although there are some men too that feel like that.
Uh-huh. That's wonderful. Now, how do you teach them this?
Well, there's two things. I teach them to create a space of their own, a sacred space.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about having borders in your life, like recognizing that you're important.
Yes.
So creating that space, right, that you're important enough to have space and to move away from other people so you become your own person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you get to recognize who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that space, that sacred space, is really about, it's more than just a room, although maybe it's a space that you double up for something else, or you do it somewhere else, but it's metaphorical as well as physical, and maybe it's just metaphorical. But the idea is you have a space that you can separate yourself from everyone else and the needs that other people have.
And so, in creating in creating our own space, how does that help us have a voice? How does that relate?
Well, what that does, first of all, creating a space of your own, it allows you to separate yourself, because for many women, they don't see themselves as an individual.
Uh-huh.
They're always about helping other people or
yes.
doing things for other people, so they're attached to other people, right?
Yes.
And everything they do is connected to what everyone else does.
Uh-huh.
And by separating themselves, or separating ourselves as women, and really grounding ourselves into being who we are and connecting, like discovering who we are. So having that space, setting that time allows us to actually discover who we are. And at the same time, the space, the way I dictate it is the space should be, when I say dictate, you know, I encourage women to choose a space that really reflects who they are. So it has objects in there that speak to you as the woman. So it reminds you of who you are. So it's both a reminder of who you are now and where you're going.
So it's about self-love.
Yes, absolutely.
It's about loving yourself enough
absolutely.
to do this for yourself.
Exactly. And doing that can be really difficult, right?
Yes,
loving yourself
right.
can be demanding.
Yes, absolutely. So you obviously encourage strength and encouraging women to speak up and speak their minds.
Yes, I do.
But without being a bitch. That's part of your
absolutely.
quote, right?
Yes, yes. And that's key, because for many women, they fear being called a bitch because
mm-hmm.
there's so much noise around that word. There's
yes.
so much fear. You know, it's the fear of being selfish, the
mm-hmm.
fear of being a bitch, the fear of being uncaring. And so we often go in the opposite direction where we give everything away.
Yes.
And the idea is that sometimes you do need to stand up for yourself. And in fact, that's what love is, right? Self-love is about owning who you are and mm-hmm. accepting who you are,
mm-hmm.
wherever you may be, right? Because you can't truly love yourself unless you own who you are in this moment.
Yes, right. Now, how do you teach people not to be a bitch when they're speaking up? How do you teach that?
Well, there's a couple of different things, but one of the things is, of course, having that space. Two, so it's about recognizing who you are. First of all, you have to know who you are. What do you want? And for many women, that's a process that needs to happen, right? So it's about letting go of the myths that other people have told you, because so many women grow up with these myths that, you know, you can't be selfish, you can't be a bitch, you're not allowed, who do you think you are, you know, you don't deserve to have something of your own. So there's a lot of stuff to cut through and get away from the guilt. That's one of the things. The second thing is to begin to love yourself and have compassion for yourself, extreme compassion. It's almost like you have to be a parent to yourself. And in a way that if you think about, if you had a child that did something that they felt really bad about, and they came running up to you and said, oh, I did this, would you whip them, you know, and punish them for doing something that they felt bad about? You know, I think as most women would do it the other way, right?
Yes.
They would be compassionate. So you have to do that with yourself. You have to be compassionate with yourself and recognize that we're just going through motions. We're going through a process, and that we need to step up and do things, and maybe sometimes it's hurtful to other people. But the third thing is you're doing it out of love. When you're asking people for something, when you're expressing yourself, what you need, you come from a place of love, deep love. And true love is not about hurting other people. You're asking for something because you need it. You're not doing it in a way to hurt anyone else. So that's a very different place to come from, you know.
Yes.
When you're coming from that place, that when you're coming from a place of love and for love, and that you have no expectation that somebody else will agree with you, approve of you, and be fine with that. Because that comes back to the second place. When you ground yourself and you know who you are, you don't have to have the approval of anyone else, right? And you still feel comfortable. And you don't feel threatened. Because that's what love is, not feeling threatened by other people's opinions. Not trying to make anyone believe you, right?
Yes.
Or do what you do. You want them to do. Like for many women, that's what it's about. It's about, how do I get people to do all the stuff that they need to do because I know how to do it right.
I know,
right?
Yes.
And you don't know how to do it, and it won't be right, and it creates all this stress, right? So we say yes to all these things that we really want to say no to. And so this is part of it. So teaching a woman how to say no is owning who she is, letting go of expectations from other people. Like, I'm going to tell you how to do it better. We just have to trust that someone else knows for themselves what they need. So it's like you have to give the other person, whether it's your spouse, your children, your boss, you have to give them the respect that you want. That respect of listening to what they're saying, hearing with an open heart. Right.
I was just going to ask you about a situation. If someone was in a situation that they were uncomfortable in work, and their supervisor is being less than compassionate with them, and they feel threatened about their job. Now, what about speaking up in a situation like that?
Well, you know, speaking up, it's a learned skill, right? Because we have to break down habits that we've developed since we were children, when we were told to keep quiet and not do what we wanted. So if you're in that situation where your boss is being aggressive or asking you to do that, first you have to ground yourself, right? You have to think about yourself. There's all kinds of exercises, but one thing to do is to think about yourself as being a tree, right?
Is a
and
tree.
growing roots, right? Your roots growing. So while they're talking to you, the first thing you have to do is really breathe out, right? So you come out of that fight or flight mode, so you feel like, okay, somebody's threatening me, I need to attack back, which is what's typical of what people normally do, is it to breathe out, right? And then think about grounding yourself. So there's different ways to do it. Like I say, roots, think about your hips, you know. Stand in a position where your legs are kind of separated, and so you're very sturdy, and bring your mind to your hips, or feel like you have a grounding cord that's going to the center of the earth. Those are things that are going to bring you back to who you are. And then think about compassion or love for this person. Like, think, this person's trying to help me, right? And thinking about it from the point of view I feel this person cares about me. Right? And I care about them. So then it takes away the judgment, because the person's not saying it to hurt you. They're saying it because there's something that needs fixing. And maybe there's something you need to listen to, you know. And so you can hear it instead of putting up that wall and saying, wait a minute, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, let me listen to what they're saying, and then I'll respond, right? And maybe they just want you to say, I hear you, right?
How did you get into this kind of work, Jen?
Well, you know, I was a people pleaser myself for many years, and I had an experience with my daughter when she was like 12, telling me, you know, Mom, you're one of those women that if you were in, you know, an airplane or whatever, you'd be helping the person next to you before you help yourself.
Oh.
And, you know, that's a cardinal rule of life, is that we forget about that.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
helping ourselves first. being strong first, so we can come to a place of emergency or whatever it is, or threat, without ourselves being weak. You know, and when we talk weak, there are two types of weakness, right? The one which we should embrace that we don't, which is the vulnerability, right? And the other is the weakness of not having our grounding.
So you went through that yourself.
Yes.
Now, what about your book? We're getting lower on time.
Okay.
Tell us about
so
your book.
Yes, so my book, The Chic Cocoon, and it's 7 Steps to Creating Your Selfish Space.
Oh, your what space?
Selfish.
Your selfish space?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. So selfish is okay?
Yes, well, I think so. You know, we all need to own those words that bother us, and why they bother us, because of what happens. And in the book, I actually teach 7 steps to creating your selfish space, grounding yourself as a woman. Like, how do you do it? How do you find yourself? And how do you create that space? Because I'm actually an interior designer. That's my background. I understand the importance of surroundings and what that does for us and how that empowers us. So the idea is I married the two ideas together so that women could find the way to empower themselves. And, you know, I talk about myself. There's some of this in the book. It's about creating boundaries. It's about letting people know what you believe and being okay with them thinking differently.
That's wonderful.
And, you know, and that's why I call myself the polite woman, because it's the new paradigm of polite.
Yes.
How we say what we want and don't feel threatened, and we say it in a way that doesn't hurt other people. And, you know, if...
Thank you, Jen. We're out of time, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. This was so interesting.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us tonight. That was fascinating, wasn't it? And thank you to Marin TV and to my crew. I love you guys. And I want to introduce you to my book, Every Moment is a New Beginning in Love. It's about raising our happiness by raising our love. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.